Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we are taking a look back at a premium ship that a couple of you guys have asked me to go over recently, and that is the Tier VIII Japanese Premium Battleship, the Key. Now, the Key is a ship that we talked about quite a bit before the economic rework, which was, well, now some time ago. For one main reason, that she was able to equip the Kobayashi camo that was designed for her, that gave her essentially near old school Missouri economy, meaning that this ship, if you at least had that old Kobayashi camo before the economic rework, is a bit of a credit printer if you do have her still. Again, if you had that economic bonus before the rework, but if you buy that camo now, it doesn't come with that bonus anymore. So those of us that had key before the rework were a bit lucky in those regards. But now, after the rework, not talking about that economic bonus anymore, just talking about the ship itself. How is she doing in today's World of Warships? That's what we're going to be primarily focusing on in this video, and whether or not you may want to pick her up. Now, the title of this video is something along the lines of "this ship makes no sense," or "this makes absolutely no sense," and that has to do with her comparison to her sister ship in game, the Amagi. Now, the reason why this ship doesn't make any sense is, well, if you take a look at the description for both the Key and the Amagi, who are the same type of, well, they're the same class, but the Amagi is the battle cruiser version of the Key, and the Key is the battleship version of the Amagi. Now, the Japanese, during World War II and before World War II, they had a lot of battle cruisers that were built to enter war because of the Washington Naval Treaty. They didn't want to scrap them, but battle cruisers were kind of going out of style, and battleships were all the rage, which of course battleships have more armor, they're slower. So what Japan did is they essentially converted a lot of their battle cruisers into battleships with refits. Now, typically, as I'm sure most of you are aware, battleships are more heavily armored. They can take bigger hits. Well, the Key is just hands down absolutely worse than the Amagi when it comes to her armor. So first off, one of the big bonuses is that the Amagi has these torpedo blisters that come up over the side of the ship's citadel, and hell, they even go up and meet the deck. Now, torpedo blisters in this game kind of act like spaced armor. You know, you have the torpedo blisters armor, then there's a void on the inside, and then you got to get through that to get to the ship's actual armor. So, you know, the shell hits that bit of torpedo armor, detonates early, doesn't go through, so you have some very weird situations. Well, you used to have weird situations back in the day where you would get a pin showing up in your hit ribbon bar, but you do like 1200 damage. Now, thankfully, we have torpedo protection hit ribbons with our hit ribbons, so that's at least more detailed information. Now, the Key just doesn't have that. Now, if you take a look at the armor belt on the Key, it is a little bit thicker than that of the Amagi, so you might be saying, oh, well, see, there you go, it's thicker there. Well, take that armor off and take a look at the Citadel. The Key's Citadel armor slopes are somewhere along the lines of 38 millimeters. The Amagi's is, I believe, 98 millimeters thick. So, yeah, I say I believe because for some reason my game crashes every time I load up right now, but I did manage to take a couple screenshots, so they should be coming up here in a second, so you should be able to see that. But yeah, so the Amagi, for whatever reason, just outright has better armor than the Key. I'm sorry, it's 95 millimeters on the interior sides, and the exterior slopes, I'm sorry, the bow and stern slopes are 102 millimeters thick on the Amagi. And then if we take a look at the Key's Citadel, it is on the exterior, well, it's actually not even broken up with that. It's just one big old slat of 38 millimeters. So, yeah, that makes no sense. Now, the Amagi is a pretty tough ship. It's classified as a battleship in game, but the description says battle cruise. It's a really tough ship, and you can blast an Amagi in its side, and it really won't kill. I mean, you'll chunk it, but it's not citadel damage at least. The key, you can citadel quite a bit. In fact, you'll see what happens with the game going on in the background. So that makes no sense. Now, that's not where the differences between the two sisters end. So the guns, they are both equipped with the same amount of guns. They both have 10 of the Japanese 16-inch guns in dual turrets, and they are in fact the same guns. Like the North Carolina and Iowa are the same caliber, but they're different guns. They're the same, and much of the characteristics about them are exactly the same, except when it comes to, well, the main difference is the dispersion. So the Amagi has a sigma of 1.8, and the key has a sigma of 1.7. So the key has slightly worse sigma than the Amagi. You might be thinking, Sealord, 0.1 difference. That doesn't really seem like that's that much of a difference. Well, they both have Japanese dispersion. And like we've talked about plenty of times on this channel, Japanese dispersion is terrible. It sucks so much. Now, when you lose 0.1 sigma, it hurts a lot when you have terrible dispersion, because that means you have a lower sigma rating. And you have a lower chance of getting a favorable dispersion salvo out of your guns. And when you have Japanese dispersion that's pretty much terrible in the first place, you really want everything going for you and trying to get you a good solid dispersion pattern. And having 1.7 sigma isn't really conducive to that. The Amagi does also have slightly longer range, with a maximum range of 19.8 kilometers versus the Key's 19.3. Now, the Key does have a couple more things going for it than the Amagi when it comes to its firepower. So she does have torpedoes. Torpedoes with a range of 10 kilometers. And her secondary guns are also, well, better. She gets the Japanese 100mm secondaries. This is the same guns that you will find on the Harugumo, so they have 30mm of pin base. So you could think, I see where you're going here. Secondary build. True, you can do a secondary build on the Key, and it's not terrible, because again, you have guns that pin 30mm base. You're a Tier 8 battleship, which means that, you know, most of the destroyers and cruisers that you're going to see, you can easily pin that. And if you want to pin battleships, you could also slap IFHE on there and easily get over that 32mm threshold. So that's pretty nice. And again, you have torpedoes too, so you could say, oh, you have torpedoes. You're designed to be a medium to close range ship. And I'd agree with you there. This is very much a medium to close range ship. And she's also 1 knot slower than the Amagi. Actually, I think it's half a knot with the flag. The Amagi goes 31.5 knots, and then the Key goes 31 knots as well. Half a knot slower. But yeah, Amagi's a battle cruiser, and that's just funny from my point of view. But yeah, the Key is essentially a more mid to close range Amagi with worse armor that you trade for torpedoes and better secondaries. Oh, and her A is actually pretty decent, because you have those Harugumo guns as your secondaries. They are dual purpose. So you do have that going for you. So how does she do in today's World of Warships? Well, see, the Key, with its 0.1 better sigma and its better armor, is much more better at higher tier with the current meta. Because, as you'll see in the background footage, when you are at medium to close range with the Key, she does fairly well. And the terrible Japanese dispersion, when you're at, you know, like 14, 13, 15 kilometers, it's definitely workable. It can be frustrating at times, but it's definitely workable. However, when you're trying to, you know, get out to your maximum range, that kind of makes it absolutely just infuriating and hair pulling, and You do have a spotter plane, so you can get your 19-kilometer range out a bit further, but honestly, with the keys dispersion, I just absolutely would not, because it's just too frustrating to try and play it at that range. Now, the Amagi, again, just with that 0.1 better Sigma, it is much more comfortable. Are you still going to have terrible dispersion with the Amagi at times? Absolutely, you are. It's Japanese dispersion. But again, you'd be surprised how much difference that 0.1 Sigma makes. The Amagi also, since she has the better armor, can typically stay alive for longer than the key, and you can, stay alive long enough to throw enough shells downrange to do a decent amount of damage. Now, the key, with the way that matchmaking is right now, and this could be said about both ships, Tier 9 ships are being dragged up into Tier 10 and Super Ship games. Tier 8 ships can't see, I was going to say Tier 11, but I mean, they basically are, can't see Super Ship games. So, Tier 8 is finding itself in more top-tier or mid-tier situations, which means that the key does have a pretty good chance of getting into a match that is pretty favorable to it, where it's mid-tier or top-tier, and it can get into those close-range engagements. However, that's also undermined by the fact that submarines are a thing now, and players still just find a grid square and all ball up there at times in submarine games, which can also be frustrating. But like you're seeing in the background footage, there's definitely moments where the key is still able to do her thing. And definitely for those of you that have the key with the old Kobayashi economic booster going on, definitely it's a ship that you can do ADK in, and you'll make, over 500,000 credits even on a loss. And that was my argument for the key back in the day when she had the Kobayashi camos. Run the Kobayashi camo on it, you'll be making amazing credits on even a mediocre game. But in today's World of Warships, where you can't get the Kobayashi camo anymore, and you're just stuck with these mediocre games, in my opinion, and from what I've seen too, a lot more often now than from before, is it really worth it? Because you wind up playing it just like an Amagi in most cases. You build it for main guns, you sit at medium to longer ranges, and you pray your shells hit something, but you're stuck with a ship that's slightly slower and has worse armor than the Amagi, which means that you can get vibe checked in return. So, meanwhile with the Amagi, you build for your guns, sit at medium to long range, and your guns are slightly more accurate, and you have the armor to where you can take the hits in return and again survive much longer to where you can get your damage in. Now with the key too, again, you do have those situations where you can get in close and it does work out fine, and you can use your torpedoes, and your secondaries do get to put in a bit of work every now and then from time to time, and you could look forward to the fact that you're probably going to be mid to top tier again with the way matchmaking goes, so you could roll your die on the key and get a good game. Or, if you want a close-range battleship with torpedoes and secondaries, you can buy a Tirpitz. A ship that's much better at close range, that has the armor for close range, that has the commander. You can get Lucians on Tirpitz too, and you can really be cooking with gas at that point. So, in my opinion, the appeal of buying the key, the Kobayashi economic bonus, is gone. There's no real reason to buy the key anymore, because you're going to wind up playing it like the Amagi. Unless you just really want what is probably one of the better Japanese close-range, higher-tier premium ships. So, beyond that, though, I wouldn't really recommend the key anymore. Like, just grind the Amagi, buy the economic bonus for the Amagi if you want a premium Tier 8 Japanese battleship. That's what I would recommend for you. It's a lot cheaper than buying the key as well. Unless, maybe you just want a Japanese AA boat. But other than that, yeah, this ship is a pass in my opinion, and again, unless you have the old Kobayashi economic bonus on it, not much real reason to take her out in my opinion. Again, especially when you have ships like the Tirpitz and the Brandenburg that are much better secondary close range ships in today's World of Warships. Again, that's just my 2 cents on the ship. So let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think about the key in today's World of Warships? Do you still enjoy it? Do you have good games in her, or do you have similar findings to mine? Hope you guys enjoyed and have a wonderful Thursday and wonderful rest of your week. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 50,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday, wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.